Hi, this is Maisha Williamson with STEM Girl Social Network, and today we're interviewing Corielle Heath with Lift Uplift Network. She started a network to help young female entrepreneurs share their businesses, and she's a new tech entrepreneur in Chicago, and she's one of the most well-connected, excited young people I know. So I just wanted to share a little bit of her story with you today and help inspire different career options. Like there's entrepreneurship in technology as well. So Corielle, if you could introduce yourself and tell them more about Lift Uplift.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you again for letting me come on and tell my story. My name is Corielle Heath, and I am the founder of LIFTUPLIFT.com, which is an e-commerce marketplace, as you said, that is exclusively populated with women-owned businesses and female entrepreneurs. And the mission behind the technology was much bigger than the technology. In short, we are on a mission to empower women worldwide. And I believe that that's possible through entrepreneurship, patronage, and helping women see each other as allies. So I've only been at this for about a year, but we've accomplished an incredible amount in that time. And only through the hard work of my entire team and the community that we're building and everyone that wants to see Lift Uplift come to life has contributed to making it possible and bringing it live as of last month. So we are freshly launched, and it's the most exciting time of my entire life.
Great, great. If you could share a little bit about where you're from, your educational background, and what you saw yourself being when you were younger.
Wow. Okay, well, I am from Frankfort, Illinois, which is about an hour south of the city of Chicago. My educational background, I had to get out of the Midwest. So first I went to Pennsylvania to a school called Lehigh University, where I studied sociology and global studies, which was just as vaguely defined now as, or then as it is now. I just was interested in global perspectives on people and business and the way that the world works, as seen from outer space. I see this blue ball, this planet, as the home of humanity. I don't really think of myself as a Chicago native or even, as an American, more than I think of myself as a global citizen. So my passion has always been for international collaboration. And so I studied abroad twice. I got to go to Ireland and study at the University of Galway in their Human Rights Center. And then again, I went back and studied at Temple University at their Rome campus. So I was in Ireland and Italy. And then for my master's degree, because I still didn't know what I wanted to do after all of this, is the long and short of it. After getting 4 years under my belt, I had no idea what to do with my life other than that I still had that global interest, and now I had some background in marketing and communications. So I got my master's in public relations at USC. So all the way over to the other side of the country to Los Angeles. And I finished that much quicker than I should have because I was so impatient to get to work. I don't know why. School is the best time ever. There's never going to be another opportunity to learn and really work your brain like you have when you're a student. So I do sort of regret rushing through my master's program, but I did, and then I dove right into being a consultant, PR, marketing. I'm a millennial, so I have all kinds of digital skills that people will pay for. So I did it all. I managed Facebook pages and ran campaigns and just made my own living, self-employed, for about 3 years after that. And then I started working here in Chicago at a woman-owned app development company. And that was the start of my journey that ultimately became my own business, Lift Uplift.
Awesome, awesome. And can you talk to us about how you came up with the idea for our Lift Uplift? What made you leave the ad agency alone, or what made you decide to start this business? How did you formulate that idea?
Well, it was inspired. The whole idea was inspired by one woman after the next. It started, well, you could say it started with my mom, who was the CFO of a steel company while I was growing up. And that's what sparked my passion for empowering women. And so it's always been a part of me. I saw that she was living a different life than what you see women living on TV, or, you know, even what my friends' moms might have been living. And that just fascinated me. It like why women were experiencing the world in, you know, in such different ways from what was expected of women or depicted of women. So anyway, so my mom started the whole thing many, many years ago. But then last summer, I met a young woman from India named Afreen, and she changed my life. She is the most eloquent, intelligent young woman I have ever met, young person I've ever met. And she was studying abroad as a computer programming intern here in Chicago. We're from Bangalore, just for that summer. So we bumped into each other at a Women in Tech networking lunch. And when it was her turn to introduce herself, she stood up and she was all bold. And she said she would share her story with anyone who wanted to learn more about life for women in tech in India. And so I was like, she let me interview her. And we talked for a couple hours. And at the end of it, I was a completely different person, having my little bubble shattered by someone with a truly diverse global perspective was all it took to just turn my train onto a different track. So Afreen, she just, like I said, she shared her story, but it was the simple answers that she gave that were more like a slap in the face that really woke me up. I asked her, for example, the biggest difference between life for women in India and life for women in the US. And she said, all women here are free. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. All women here are free. And it was just such, things like that, just the basic freedoms and rights and power that American women take for granted is when I realized that I wasn't doing as much as possible to build the kind of world that I wanted to leave behind. And more importantly, I don't have children yet, but I want to give my children a better world than what we've got right now. And so I was like, she incepted me. She planted the idea in my head that American women have all of this power and freedom, and that there's responsibility that comes with that. So over the next few months after meeting Afreen, my brain churned on that. What could I do to do more? Well, how could I use my skills and my passion differently to actually make a direct impact and use my full time to do it? And there wasn't anything. There was no existing organization that was designed to empower women globally in a way that I felt like I could be a part of and really optimize my contribution to this cause that I care about. And so that's when entrepreneurship came into the picture. When I couldn't find an organization to work for, I started thinking about the organization I would build. And once I headed down that line of thinking, it ultimately led me to the question, why not, right away? I'm very young, and a lot of people tell me that they're surprised to see an entrepreneur my age. But I think that this is the easiest time to start a business. I have far fewer responsibilities than I will ever have in the future. And every day that goes by, there's more tasks on my plate, not less. And as a young person, I still have a lot of support from my parents and from my neighbors and relatives, and even my former professors that I'm still connected to. And so it really was the best time to start Lift Up Lift. And that's what I realized last September. And it was maybe a day later that I made the move to quit my job. I told my bosses what I was going to do, and they weren't surprised. They actually had seen it coming for longer than I had. In fact, when I said I was leaving and that I was going to start my own business, they said, "Is it to empower women?" And I said, "Yeah, it is, actually." I just never hesitated. Afreen, what she did for me was show me the urgency of the need to empower women and how real it was. And it did. It just got real in that moment. And from there, I problem solved and came up with Lift Uplift.
Awesome. Awesome. There are studies and news reports that say lately that women are starting businesses at a far faster rate than men are because of the opportunities that they don't have in the workplace or the income glass ceiling they might have in the workplace. But on the flip side of that, women don't have the access to capital or the access to networks that men have. And because of that, women's businesses tend to fail faster than men's businesses. How do you feel about that? Has that affected you? And how do you think you're troubleshooting around those issues?
Oh, it's the perfect question because my business is essentially, I was created to solve that challenge. So when I started thinking, what more can I do? Again, there was inspiration that came in because here in Chicago, we are leading the world as a startup ground for female founders. And I was witnessing this all around me, that all of a sudden, so many women that I knew were starting businesses. And not just that, but businesses that had, you know, the potential to make a real impact in the world, to really solve problems, or to solve problems in a way that, you know, for women that maybe a man would never even have considered. And so all of a sudden it became much, much, much clearer how important business ownership and entrepreneurship are for women. Yes, you're right. A lot of women are being driven out of traditional sectors or traditional career paths by inequality that's still lingering and still undermining women, you know, in the corporate world. But I think that the fact that they're leaving and starting their own business is exactly what we need. I think that is the fastest way to the solution. With more women at the top, we will have far less gender inequality trickling all the way down. So I thought, wow, I really wish that there was more I could do to help these women start their businesses and bring their products to market. And a big part of the challenge for women is that they are underfunded, grossly underfunded. Women receive less than 3% of all venture capital investment. And you're right, despite starting businesses at 1.5 times the rate of men, we're still like 20% lower than average for business loan approval and all kinds of inequalities and barriers that keep women from either starting or growing. And growing is the real challenge. I think American women employ 6% of the American workforce, despite owning about 30% of businesses. So the vast majority of female entrepreneurs, once they start, even if it doesn't mean the failure of the business, they do struggle or fail to grow. And so there is this big need to find capital in another way. So patronage is what came to my mind because that's all I had to offer at the moment. I don't have capital to invest in a business, but I can shop from them. And I do believe strongly that where I spend my money makes a difference, that I'm buying from people, and those people and what they believe and what they're going to do with my money matters. And so I feel personally very empowered as a consumer, and that's the idea that led to Lift Uplift, that if one person, one consumer could actually make a difference to a business owner, then bringing females together as entrepreneurs and consumers would produce a renaissance. American women have alone $7 trillion in annual spending power. And there's like 50 billion invested in new business ventures each year. So it takes a very small percent of the money that American women are already doing as we shop and buy and spend to close the funding gap entirely and have plenty of spending money left over to have a real impact on the rest of the world just by shopping.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's awesome. It's awesome you're doing that. That's an awesome idea. And I think it is very important where we spend our money. It's shown that when you spend money at a women-owned business, it's more likely to be reinvested back into the community. So yeah. I believe that's absolutely awesome. And I guess close to second to the last question I have for you, but you do not have a tech background and you're starting a technology-based business, but it's more based on your passion. What advice would you have for young ladies who want to start a business and they want to start a technology-based business, but they might be scared because they don't have the technical skills or they don't have the business skills they think to start a business?
Don't be scared. Fear is the mind killer. I think that's a quote from Dune, so I won't even take credit for it, but it's the truth. Being afraid is a backward step. So if you're interested in starting a business, a tech business, or any other type of business, you should. You should at least pursue it, because the one thing that I learned after starting this business is that I will never go back to a worse point than when I started. Having started this business has not only personally endowed me with experiences that I am the most invaluable experiences of my life, but I've gained an incredible amount of respect amongst my community. Being the founder of a company, successful or unsuccessful, it still says something. It still means something, and it's just like another learning opportunity. So you have nothing to lose. If you don't have a tech background and you want to start a tech company, that is also not a problem. As long as that you have the connections, or you can get the connections to people that can develop technology, then you can either partner through equity relationships or by bringing on a technical co-founder. Or in my case, I just hired. I had enough savings to be able to hire a team in Uruguay that I had worked with at my former job. And they believed in what I was doing, so they gave me an even better rate than they otherwise would have. And I have had to do very little coding myself. I know some, so I'm able to tweak and play around with it. But for the most part, this business has come to life through the team, not through me. And that is probably the secret to any business success. Find people that have the skills that you do not have and be their leader. If you're an entrepreneur, the only thing you need to ask yourself is if you can lead other people fearlessly. And it really does need to be fearlessly, because you need to inspire confidence and all of that. But if you can lead the rest, then the rest will happen. It doesn't matter what skills you bring to the table outside of leadership. I will say my contacts have been the one thing I could not have done this without. If I didn't know the people that I needed to put that first team together, it would have been much harder. I would have probably needed to wait, find the team, work my network, and then quit my job. So I'm not saying just go out and quit your job right away. But if you have the people, make it happen. That's all you need. It's not about money. It's about support.
I think that was awesome. Everything was awesome about what you said. And I know Donald Trump, he's a very polarizing character, but one of my favorite quotes that has always stuck with me that I heard him say a long time ago was that I am not the smartest person in the world and I'm not the most skilled person in the world, but I'm very good at finding people who know how to do what I don't know how to do.
Yeah.
And that's where my success has come from. And also Joyce Meyer, she's a preacher. She says, if you're afraid, do it afraid. Don't wait for that fear to go away. So I think that kind of plays into what you're saying. And I think that's great advice. Thank you, Corielle. This has been amazing. I really, really enjoy speaking with you. And I learned some more things about the business as well. And if you have any parting words for our ladies, could you share them with us?
Yeah, I do. I have two. I've got two great pieces of advice in the very beginning of this journey, which I continue to remind myself every day. So the first, and it wasn't even a piece of advice, I found a book at a bookstore, and on the inside cover was the quote from Shakespeare, "To thine own self be true." And in that moment, it just sort of, it struck me that it was a message that, you know, especially as women, there are so many expectations just thrown at us from the time we're born to the time we die. And a lot of those, they're unrealistic expectations. And either purposefully or not, they hold us back. And so it reminded me that I had a right to be who I wanted to be, and that my life is mine to live, and there's no reason not to do exactly what it is that you want to do with your life and your time and be who you are. And it was a hugely empowering moment. It's so simple, but it was just giving myself the freedom to perform optimally and do what I care about. So then the second piece of advice was time kills all deals, which on the other hand is very practical advice and just like the most true thing that I have seen played out time and again. If something is important, take care of it right away. If someone is important, get back to them right away. Time will kill all opportunities, so act quickly.
Awesome, awesome, awesome advice. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking out your time to share with us, and I will now.
All right.